Hey there, welcome to episode 75 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at about 11:40 a.m. on Friday, August 2nd, 2024. First Friday in Vegas. Hopefully, wherever you found this episode, you will see an episode description with some show notes in it. The show notes, as usual, contain a brief summary, which I will read, and some links related to the show. I have the two usual shameless self-promotion links and two links about Clark County as the next big thing in innovation. I've talked about this before, as I'm about to say, but it's always a fodder for discussion. And so let's begin with the show notes. Today's summary: this is a topic we have covered before. We'll cover it again, and we're covering it now. The greater Vegas area is good at promoting the fun economy, not good at promoting its own innovation achievements, nascent or aspirational though they may be. Here's an idea for someone to take and run with, as long as you are not one of the usual suspects. The usual suspects here are incompetent. So I wouldn't want to waste a good idea on profoundly poor execution. The links for today's episode, the first two, of course, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Everything you'd want to know about all the various things I'm working on, the mostly content creation projects, but also links to my GitHub repositories. Eventually, I've spoken already about one of the entrepreneurial endeavors I'm engaged in at this very moment. I've talked about it on this very show, which, I don't know if you know this very show is about that. Cafe Genius Impresarios, people who are doing creative things. So yes, there will be links to all that in addition to actual websites and so on. So I use these sites and really as sort of like a link tree, but a little bit more than that. They're commonly found in open source projects as ways for people to contribute to the efforts of open source developers. You are under no obligation to spend any money, but I do use them just to kind of get the word out, and they're well-known, reasonably well-known button brands. People may not want to click on a link in bio, link tree or similar. Those seem to have a different purpose in more recent times. Anyway, so check those out. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com/DanHugo, ko-fi.com/DanHugo for all of your Dan Hugo creative project and entrepreneurial endeavor needs. The Clark County Innovation Corridor. There was a Las Vegas Sun article in October 2023. Shawnee Coleman is the director of something in Clark County. I think it's economic development. And director? No, is it the director? I can't remember. I have spoken to Shawnee on the phone. She was putting together an innovation proposal to be on the list of innovative cities, or I can't remember what the title of it was. We've talked about this as well. The federal government, the United States federal government, has designated 31 cities or regions as innovation hubs with all of the accolades that go with that. Reno got that for Nevada with lithium. Because of their lithium mines, they're going to pursue energy storage and battery technologies and so on. Unfortunately, they're having a lot of trouble with that, and lithium is not necessarily everybody's favorite when it comes to battery explosions and whatnot. Ironically, the 15 freeway between Las Vegas and Southern California was blocked recently. How many times will I say that? By a truck that was carrying lithium batteries and caught fire, exploded. It was at least a full day. I think it was at least 24 hours. It may have been longer. That traffic was stopped. If you've ever driven to either way, I think they were driving to California. But if you are ever in stopped traffic on that route going in either direction in the summer, you know that is front row seats to disaster. Anyway, I will probably read something from this article, and it's not only Shawnee, but I have actually spoken with her. Good for her. So Innovation Corridor Proposal is something I've definitely talked about before. It's on a website called Issue, I guess. It's basically a SlideShare type website. There's a sort of an executive summary of a innovation corridor installation. Some buildings would be built with some buzzwords, engagement, activation. If you dive into it a little bit, you can read through it. It's very focused on meetup spaces, restaurants, bars, coffee shops. The notion is to create a gravity well where people who have the innovation bent, who are entrepreneurial, would just sort of mingle and gather, because there are no such places in Las Vegas. I don't know if you know this. Everything you've seen on TV and in movies and so on, completely fake. When you get here, it's just a desert. So they have to build some meeting spaces for people to meet, gather, and discuss their startup plans when they're visiting Las Vegas. That's all of my sarcasm for the moment. So let's begin with part of the inspiration for the list. And again, I'll tell you what that means shortly. Food Tech 2019. I can't remember why I received an invitation to this, but I received an invitation. I think it was the first year they were holding this little showcase. It was put on by Spoon Magazine, Michael Wolf in Seattle, somewhere in Washington State. Spoon Magazine is about food technologies, food stuff in general. So I received an invitation. Would you like to participate? I'm sorry. Would you like to attend, not participate, as a I don't remember if it was a press pass or something. So I said yes, of course. It was innovators in the food technology space. One of the people I met there was, several people in the Spin company from Eindhoven in Holland. They have a centripetal force espresso machine, in fact. I had several discussions. I had a long discussion with them then. I had discussions that followed. Interesting group of people. No. I have to correct myself. That was in 2020. Food Tech happened twice. No, was it 2019? No, it was 2019. By the time 2020 rolled around, the second Food Tech was a little bit bigger, but then the COVID pandemic rolled out very shortly after, and whatever would come of Food Tech meetups at that point kind of withered a bit. But anyway, so my discussions with Spin were interesting. So Food Tech, interesting idea to provide a space specifically for food technology from around the world in Treasure Island. And if you're familiar with the geography of the Greater Vegas area and the layout of CES, did I mention it was during CES? I think I did. The Venetian Expo and Treasure Island are not a quick walk, not directly across the street, but essentially across the street from one another. So you didn't need to have a CES badge. You basically were on the list to attend Food Tech. So you get there and you say, here's me, and you're on the list. Check off the name. Totally free, very interesting, kind of fun, some sample snacks and whatnot. So there were some people preparing food. I think there was maybe a beverage or two, and mostly people just showing off what they're working on. It was a variety of things. So it was actually quite interesting. And attending CES was not necessary. Conveniently located, but not requiring the sometimes prohibitively expensive badge. Did you know Las Vegas has an innovation district? Well, now you do. There's an innovation district in downtown Las Vegas formed about 5 years ago. I think it was 2019, if I'm remembering correctly. You can check that out yourself. Innovate.Vegas. Innovate.Vegas. I'm not linking to it because I talk about them all the time. And the Innovation Center is where we used to have our hackathons every month for the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. I don't know if you're going to get tired of hearing the word innovate, but it's, we're trying. You know what they say, if you keep repeating it often enough, it becomes true. It was formed about 5 years ago with no apparent formal boundaries. I have looked, I have checked, I've asked, I've checked. Like, shouldn't there be some sort of a boundary around this thing called the Innovation District? It's not a business improvement district. It's not like a formally bounded funding destination, I guess, or maybe it is. It's kind of nebulous. Like I said, I've asked around. The boundaries seem to be rough and include a huge swath of downtown Las Vegas, including the Arts District, including the legal district where the courthouses and various law firms and bail bond shops are, and more. So it's quite substantial, this innovation district. Tons of things happening in the innovation district. And it is centered on the International Innovation Center. And again, like I said, we used to have our hackathons there. The guy that runs that, Don Jacobson, is probably one of the coolest people in Vegas, certainly working for the city. So he actually does understand innovation. If anyone that is employed by the city of Las Vegas were to take on the list, I would hope it would be him. It's a nice co-work and meeting space, the International Innovation Center, and it is often quiet and very available. That's how much innovation is happening, maybe. Whether this has encouraged the establishment of more innovation entities, and that's startups or existing companies, maybe they relocate here, maybe they visit, maybe they're part-time, hybrid. And by the way, I'm actually an advocate of coming to Vegas, like converging on Vegas as an innovation destination for remote workers, for virtual companies with you don't have to establish yourself in Vegas if that's not good for you, or you could, but your employees don't need to live here. And we'll get to exactly why in a moment. And there are all sorts of practical considerations as well. So it's never really clear that, as far as I can tell, if you don't just stay away from headlines, whether the innovation district is actually drawing startups or innovation in general to the area. Now, we do have, you will often find that driverless vehicles, self-driving vehicles, and of course the drone, aerial, what's UAV? Is it unmanned aerial vehicles? And then UAS is, I think, unmanned autonomous systems. A lot of men. Not a lot of men, unmanned. When I first moved to Vegas 10 years ago, officially 11 years ago, I guess now, the FAA was looking for areas where it would be legal, regulated, to begin testing drones, right? So they needed real live spaces. Nevada stepped up, of course, because we dropped nuclear weapons on us. Bring in your gamblers and your mobsters and so on. And yeah, sure, drones, as long as they don't fall out of the sky and hit too many people. No, but in all seriousness, so Nevada was one of the first 6 test sites for the FAA that led eventually to a general acceptance of autonomous vehicles, airborne and on the ground. So Nevada started rolling out test programs for driverless vehicles, self-driving vehicles. So that is actually sort of an established niche here. You can literally get in a vehicle without a driver somewhere in Vegas and go to a real place. So it's actually in use on the ground. It hasn't really taken over the streets yet, but it is available. And of course, the boring tunnel silliness. Who knows what will come of that? So there has been some innovation around transportation, especially autonomous. The loop, the thing that the boring tunnel drilled, is not autonomous. Personally, I think it should be more of a subway instead of individual Tesla vehicles. But as I have learned, nobody in the greater Vegas area is too concerned with my views. The value of the innovation district overall is tricky. There's an innovation center 2, which is used as much more of a designated co-work space. So some of the startups that have received support from any of the various accelerator innovation programs. I left my air conditioner on again. I had to pause, turn that off. I may need to edit out. I've noticed that it picks up some of the some noise if the air conditioner's on during recording. So I'll have to fix that. So we'll see. If you hear some weird noise from before now, air conditioning, the Carnot cycle at work. So yes, the question is whether the innovation center or the Innovation Center 2. And again, that's mostly companies that have received some early funding rounds through any of our various accelerators and incubator programs and whatnot. All are the same company, Startup NV, which we'll touch on next. I had to stop laughing. Startup NV. This is the essential gatekeeping organization that has managed to capture substantial oversight and general involvement in many funding and promotion efforts. That is, if there's a startup activity going on somewhere in Nevada, Startup NV's name will be on it, and it will not be great. It will get attention because of the popularity metric. If you have a halo on your head, then people will listen to you. The local press will cover you. You will get you'll get a spot at CES. Oh, this the hub at Mobile World Congress, or the startup stage at CES, sponsored by Startup NV. If any other entity tries to do that, you're probably not going to get your calls returned. So you have to have celebrity status, which is healthy. No, a true startup environment would enable people with ideas, especially innovative ideas, to pursue them. You don't have to pass through a gate kept by the likes of Startup NV. They started in Reno because they have better access to state government in Carson City, and so they've established themselves from Reno and down to Southern Nevada as the sort of one-stop shop, which unfortunately is not healthy. The stated focus is tech and tech adjacent. So if you're working on something else, they're not going to help you. It limits the depth and breadth of innovation possibilities in this geography. If you're, hey, Startup NV, we're basically it. You're not working on tech. You're not going to be the next unicorn. Maybe good luck. On the other hand, since they service investors first, and this I heard directly from Jeff Sailing. He's the co-founder and soon to be retiring director or president or whatever, leader of the Startup NV entity. And I think Startup NV is a 501c3, strangely enough. Their goal was not to, their primary goal was not necessarily to encourage community and all these other buzzwords you'll hear. It was much more about servicing investors. So it's return on investment for investor funds. That should not surprise anyone, but it is sort of disconcerting if people believe, and this is the problem, if people believe that Startup NV is somehow a community driver, right? Like, oh, we're going to help people start companies. They have launched their different programs to help people be entrepreneurial, but that's I think that sort of rounds out their offerings to quell the notion of like, wait a minute, you're only focused on tech startups, which is not the whole world. It seems like it's the whole world. The whole world is powered by tech, but if you want to create a startup that is tech adjacent but not in their purview, you might be on your own, which is unfortunate. Not everything is an app. There are some nuances there. We can get into that another time. But essentially, Startup NV is not a wonderful resource. It has problems. But unfortunately, oh, and by the way, the startups that they focus on, because of their primary motivation, again, is a return on investment for their investors. So, which is fine, as long as they're completely transparent about that, which they would be to their investments, but they're not necessarily advertising that. Yeah, it's not their tagline. We're looking out for our investors. If the startup that they are funding or connecting with funding is located in Nevada or maybe somewhere else, it's not a critical consideration. It could be inside Nevada. It could be barely in Nevada. It might not be in Nevada. I have seen companies that are based in Singapore and Israel with one person, maybe with a P.O. box in Vegas, being called a Vegas startup, which is sort of an insult to people who are actually here pursuing startups, but that's the way it is. Again, nobody's listening to my views. There has been a consolidation of Startup.Vegas, which was a different effort to encourage investment opportunities for local money. So if you were somebody with money here in the greater Vegas area looking for something to invest in, Startup.Vegas would be a gateway to that. I believe when I spoke to Peter, one of the co-founders, about it, and by the way, Peter doesn't include Startup.Vegas on his LinkedIn profile anymore. since they've consolidated, that's something I should dive into a little bit if I cared. They consolidated with Startup NV, so now there's only one. But the goal was to provide an interface for companies outside of Nevada to reach into the money in Nevada. I don't know what the funding levels would be. I from what I understand, there is substantial money in Southern Nevada, thanks in part to a retirement destination, some other just general resource availability. Of course, the gaming industry provides certain avenues to financial gains. So yeah, there's old money here. There's big old money. There's not quite as big money that may or may not be old or maybe slightly younger. So yeah, there's money floating around. So how do you tap those resources? So Startup.Vegas was initially, from what I understand directly, was intended to be that interface. But yeah, now Startup.Vegas and Startup NV have consolidated. Now, I will plant this seed now. This is not exactly what this episode is about, so I don't want to go off on them too much. But there is a reason I am mentioning all this. But it is counterintuitive that there are now fewer. There's Generator also, which is a national accelerator program, and Generator has a presence here in Southern Nevada. I believe they've been shunned, possibly because they were launched here when our Governor Sisolak was in office, and then Governor Lombardo, formerly Sheriff Joe Lombardo, took office, and then Generator hasn't really gotten so much attention. I don't know if there's a correlation there or not. I mean, there is a correlation. I don't know if there's causation. So Generator has sort of been backburnered from what I can tell. They're nowhere near as present, universally present, as Startup NV and the Startup NV brand. So if we did have a growing innovation environment here, if we anticipated being an innovation hub, the next Silicon Valley, as some people will jokingly say, I can't imagine they're serious, we should have more such gatekeepers. There should be so much going on that Startup.Vegas and Startup NV would be like on their own pathways, maybe not even a need to directly compete with each other if competition is a thing. Neither was I believe both were nonprofits. I believe both were 501c3s. So they're not even in a competition for profitability. They're in a competition to connect resources, but arguably different types of resources. So different types of startups, maybe some here, maybe some not. To their credit, Startup.Vegas seemed to be entertaining some different ideas, but still mostly tech. So not much credit, but to their credit. The reason I'm mentioning Startup NV in this context, however, Startup NV's name is always on everything. So it is up to Startup NV, apparently, thanks to their celebrity status, to be behind any sort of promotion of stuff. Hey, we got plenty of startups here. Here's both of the companies that we've invested in. And here's the one that actually kind of didn't lose as much money. So yeah, there are some success stories, but they don't get the attention that I would imagine they should get if they're really trying to drive this. So when people talk about the tech scene or the innovation scene in Greater Vegas, they're focusing, and I believe rightfully so, on the gaming and hospitality space, which is where Blackfire Innovation comes in, which I'll mention shortly. But they will lean on, and if you read this article, which I will get to in the next section of my notes here, if you read the article about the innovation corridor in the Las Vegas Sun, there's always this mention of big, well-known companies. So, for example, if you go to the Cooperate, I think it's Co-Operate, but Cooperate space at the Tech Center, which is where Blackfire is on the top floor. The Cooperate Center is the floor below it. I think it's the second floor. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 floors, but I think it's 3. But it might be 4. So Cooperate is a big co-working space, right? Lots of meeting rooms, lots of rentable offices, hot desking, all the usual stuff. When you go there, and if you ask, hey, so what's this all about? Oh, we have plenty of companies renting office space here, like Microsoft and Google. And I said, are there any local companies? Oh, yeah. Well, why don't you mention those first? Well, because nobody will know who they are, because we do an awful job of promoting them. And Startup NV, it gets that credit. Others do as well, but Startup NV should be front and center powering things like cultivation of innovation culture and promoting the innovation, either aspirational or nascent, or importing or visiting. They should be driving a full force effort if they really believed that an innovation corridor as part of a larger innovation hub were real possibilities or legitimate possibilities. They're real. I don't know if they're legitimate. Let's talk about the innovation corridor. And again, we're going to get to the list. I promise. It's I got 2 more sections and then we're on to the list. So the innovation corridor. This is a notion based on viewing other geographies with successful innovation hub installations. I will say, we're going to be the next Silicon Valley. They were sending people from Las Vegas to Silicon Valley and other places, but Silicon Valley is the pipe dream, the fever dream of the people of Vegas. They figure, well, we're going to be the next Silicon Valley. We're so close. We can convince, anytime someone moves from Silicon Valley to Greater Vegas, they will get a press mention. They're so excited. Hey, Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz have purchased homes in the Greater Vegas area. They're well, unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to go anywhere. Marky Mark bought a home in Summerlin, and his kids love it here, going to private schools. And Hollywood 2.0 is going to be a thing. Oh, maybe not, but it depends on the tax credits, which didn't happen. And is Sony going to spend that money on well, maybe. We'll see. So if you're a celebrity moving from Silicon Valley or Hollywood, you will get plenty of attention. Otherwise, good luck. And I think that's a problem. So by looking at Silicon Valley, salivating, the dream is we can just do that. We can do that too. We'll just get people to move here. What about gentrification? Don't worry about that. We'll just price people out of the fun economy, but we'll replace them with robots, which will be developed by the people that move here from Silicon Valley. So it's, again, a fever dream. The location for the innovation corridor is chosen to be proximal to UNLV. So it's in the southern part of the region near the Innovation Center, spelled INNEV, as in Nevada, Innovation Center, where the switch is, and it's got some co-work spaces as well and some other things. So it will be in that area, which I think is actually a good idea. If you're going to focus on innovation, the university should be involved. Why? Because we have nothing else going on here in general innovation. If you want to create prototypes, if you want to do anything that you could do in Silicon Valley or in any true innovation hub region, you have to send it out. You have to go somewhere else. You have to get remote work done. We don't really have the resources here on our asset map to enable full range innovation. So the easy low-hanging fruit is internet. Build apps, build AI apps. That's going to take over everything. So if we read, let me pull up this article. I have my highlighted section and everything. Look at this, I'm ready. So if you read the Las Vegas Sun article, I believe too, in the show notes, this is Shawnee. Nope, this is Justin Jones. Shawnee's earlier on there. Justin Jones is a commissioner with the county of Clark. The county has begun moving forward with funding a direct fiber optic cable, high-speed internet connection between the Harry Reid Research Park, which is where Blackfire Innovation is. So it's sort of attached to UNLV, so Research Park, right? That's where the UNLV Office of Economic Development is. That's where a Hollywood studio space will be for some whatever they're doing there. They have a maker space that would fit in your closet. And Switch in the Innovation Center. So those are not next door to each other, but they are certainly connected via high-speed internet through fiber optic cable. Fun fact, the supercomputer at Switch was gifted by Intel Corporation thanks to the hard work of Martin Leslie, one of my Intel colleagues who lives in Orange County, but who directed the gift of Cherry Creek, a substantially powerful and ranked supercomputer, about 7 years ago, I think. And they've continued to invest in it to make it more powerful, more performant, from what I understand, and to make it air cooled, which is the preferred way to operate things at Switch. So this big giant supercomputer was made available to UNLV and their computing research facilities and so on Professor Joe Lombardo, different from the governor, two different people, was in on a meeting that I was in where we got all this ball rolling. And when I was with Intel as well, the fiber optic connection between UNLV was put in place to enable direct connection to this compute resource. So the idea here is to make a little triangle, and so everybody's making use of this super fast internet connections. Of course, Switch is famously, thanks to Enron, connected to the entire internet at ridiculous speeds. Again, back to the quoting here, once hooked up, businesses would be able to connect to the fiber network of the two companies, so Switch and the Harry Reid Research Park, which I don't think is properly a company. It would be a collection of things, but between the companies for faster data processing and computing, Jones said. This means jobs and research being accomplished at a more efficient pace. So fast internet is all you need. This arrangement would make, and again quoting, or the reading from the article, this arrangement would make Las Vegas's tech scene pretty unique when you compare Las Vegas's, it's a weird apostrophe there, Las Vegas's position with other cities, Jones said. So everybody gets fast internet access. That is not, I hate to say this, that is not the key to success. It's nice to have. It's definitely nice to have. I'm really excited to get the supercomputer connected throughout this corridor. So that's the Cherry Creek. Get this supercomputer connected throughout this corridor. I think this really has the potential to be a game changer for this area. And there'll be an enormous attractor for business in this space. Now, there is another company that Peter Tomasic is actually forming. So that may be the supercomputer they're talking about, and it will be a GPU-powered computer. The Cherry Creek is a Xeon-powered computer. Hopefully they've added more GPUs to it by now. That's neither here nor there. The fact is, fast connections to compute resources will be the difference between fun economy and startup economy or something. Yeah, so let's leave that. The whole article is okay. It's not too ridiculous. There's a big problem though. Unfortunately, the two aspects of the innovation corridor, I can't read my own notes. Unfortunately, the two aspects of the innovation corridor that seem to be key are common spaces for gatherings and meetup programming. If you read through the executive summary document, it's a slide deck. The idea, had to get some water there, sorry. And still, there's a smoke from the park fire in Vegas. It's totally screwing with me this whole week. The common spaces, if you look at the executive summary, there is a lot of emphasis on programming of education programs, of educational gatherings, I guess. Education tracks for innovation and entrepreneurialism and so on, presumably aimed at artificial intelligence and the use of supercomputers, maybe, and the emphasis of on meetups, common spaces for people to just run into each other. The serendipitous collision model that the late Tony Hsieh, was encouraging in the downtown project days. So if you build it, they will come. So gatherings, meetup programming, training, education, etc., things that should already have been happening for years here. And high-speed internet access to the Innovation Center, like I said, NEV, Innovation Center, and the rest of the internet. So you just need those two things and you're good to go. And what they have left out is, first of all, unfortunately, the greater Vegas area has an awful track record managing an entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, which means that this is a rather large gamble with a minimal likelihood of the success they might be looking for. Why is this? Well, let us remind ourselves of what the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem could look like, what it should contain. These are not only these are not the only requirements, but I call them the 4 basic pillars. I have heard versions of maybe more like 8 pillars if you subdivide these down, but these are 4 easy to remember, easy to envision, necessary components if you're going to ponder, if you're going to consider, if you're going to tell yourself that you are in or planning to be in an entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. First and often underrated. There's often a presumption that you can snap your fingers and this will just happen, but I have basically called it the education and talent pool pillar. So you should have a strong education program that encourages entrepreneurialism and empowers innovation, innovative thinking. You need lab spaces, you need hackathons, you need economic education, right? How does money work if you want to start your own business? This should not be a surprise, right? Personally, I think education along these avenues should begin at age 12, seventh grade. That seems to be an inflection point where the notion of like, what do I want to do when I grow up, really starts to become a possibility. Thanks to just around seventh grade, junior high school is when there's a diversity in classroom options, sometimes an extracurricular program, or the ability to take different types of classes on a particular schedule. So you may take electives and so on. So seventh grade just seems to be a comfortable inflection point where we would begin to say, okay, do you want to do something where you work for someone else, or do you have any inclinations? Are you an aspirational entrepreneur, perhaps? There are entrepreneurs in the world who are younger than 12, who have started businesses. It is possible. There are a couple here in Vegas, in fact. And the talent pool, it shouldn't be connected directly to education. They go together just because ideally the educational pathway leads to more people in the talent pool. But the talent pool could be stocked with people from other places, people who are visiting the area, or they may just be available. They don't really have to live here. These are people who can be a part of the startup scene, the innovation culture. They're people to work with and for. And I will say from my personal experience, it is difficult to find the people in this area who are in the innovation mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset. There are people here, there are people who are innovative, and there are people who are entrepreneurial. I don't want to make it sound like no one here is doing any of this. But it is not the deep and wide sea that people might be led to believe if you read the hype. The culture of innovation pillar, this is an intangible, but it is the tendency to make innovation a top-tier activity with attention, participation, general lean-in. If you're in an innovation culture of innovation, you will hear about these things. You will learn about these things. You will know about these things. You will know that there are companies down the street doing innovative things. You'll know that there are hackathons. You'll know that there are robot competitions. They will make the news. People will talk about them. If the test I have always provided when I was in Silicon Valley between 1993 and 2001, my first tour of duty, and I'm not even kidding, you could be sitting in a coffee shop of your choice, often filled with people, having little mini meetings about their startups and so on. If you said, I have this idea, this is something of an exaggeration, but just picture it. Everyone in the coffee shop would stop talking and lean towards you. And I think there was an investment firm commercial like that. The investment firm probably collapsed in 2008. But either way, so everybody would kind of lean like, ooh, somebody has an idea here in Silicon Valley. That's how things begin here. So there's just a general understanding that, oh, you're working on a startup. What is it? I have been, you can sit in a coffee shop in the greater Vegas area, maybe not in the innovation corridor. Maybe that will change. But you could be sitting in the Bad Owl coffee shop immediately next door to the International Innovation Center and yell at the top of your lungs that you have a new idea, you have a startup idea, you have a new technology, you're working on some innovation. Someone might ask you to keep it down. The culture of innovation is in dire need of cultivation here, and that's not going to happen by building a building. In fact, it's arguable that this pillar is almost more of an orthogonal pillar. You could say the community is one of the pillars, and a culture of innovation should be like a perpendicular axis, perhaps. Those have kind of merged. Community is an overused word, so just showing up for things does not make a community. So culture of innovation is much more pointed, much more essential than merely showing up. And it includes things like media outlets. It includes education, school. So it's a part of education and talent pool. So it's a squishy one, but I'm not going to argue about it. We need it. Government and infrastructure. The innovation corridor might be an example of the government, the county, pursuing some infrastructure. The government can also make favorable tax situations possible, which is arguably true here in Nevada. and regulating or not regulating, passing laws to enable some innovation, for example, in the area of drones and driverless vehicles, which I believe I touched on. Here in Nevada, especially Southern Nevada, access to resources like high-speed internet in broad, large areas. So they're taking advantage of the BEAD program now, which is a government program to bring more people into the high-speed internet realm. So if you are in the Southern Nevada area and you've noticed streets being torn up with big giant, they look like circular saws, they're laying fiber optic cable. Yay. Communications in general. So you should be able to communicate not only within the region, but on the internet. So fast internet access. Sure, that's nice. It's not everything. Tax policies, like I said, grant monies. So the GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, offers some grant programs. Some of them are matching programs. Some of them are direct funding. Some of them are DEI emphasis programs to make sure there's inclusivity in the startup scene. So if you're an underrepresented group and you have startup ideas, there may be additional monies. That's a good thing. So some of the things available in Nevada and in Southern Nevada in this area are okay. They are good. The culture of innovation, however, could be more tightly integrated into this if that's the direction they intend to take. It's not a LinkedIn post that makes the difference. It's ongoing investment of time and energy, funding, and so on into cultivating. It's hard to develop a culture of innovation, but you can cultivate it. Education, talent pool make up a big part of that as well. And access to capital. That's the one that everybody first mentions here. We need to have access to more capital. It's the first and most mentioned. This goes beyond government grant monies, of course, into seed funding, venture rounds, other forms of financial enablement of entrepreneurial efforts, well beyond the $100,000, $1 million. How can I get access to 50 million, 100 million? So that's one of the concerns that comes up here, and maybe rightfully so. It turns out if you ask some venture capitalists, they will actually include ecosystem as one of their considerations. Where is the startup that I am investing in based? What resources do they have access to? If you've looked through the annals of Silicon Valley venture investment, you will find Sand Hill Road and its various venture firms and so on there. There are always strings attached to venture funding, and the strings would usually be tugging you to move to Palo Alto or Menlo Park somewhere where Sand Hill Road is. So they really want you to be close to them, but they also knew the ecosystem. They knew the resources that were available. They knew that there was a culture of innovation in Silicon Valley, obviously. They know the education and talent pool generally. Now, this was many years ago. Nowadays, things have changed, and now they're changing again thanks to artificial intelligence, which is probably why the Greater Vegas area believes artificial intelligence is our road to being the next Silicon Valley. Now, the fun economy. It's a term trademarked by the UNLV Office of Economic Development, and it's pending. This marks the 2-year month, August, so I should check that again. Maybe I'll talk about that next week. So the fun economy, trademark pending, by the Office of Economic Development. The next Silicon Valley, no trademark pending. I don't think they've gone for the Hollywood 2.0. But fun economy. What is the fun economy? It is gaming. It is entertainment. It is tourism. It is professional sports. It is conventions. The 5 pillars of the fun economy. Those aren't going anywhere. They have shown remarkable resilience after the pandemic. The move towards economic diversity is a desire to not depend entirely on the fun economy in the face of adversity like a pandemic. However, the fun economy has bounced back such that it's really hard to argue. If you are wondering, would building the Formula One racetrack, if you had to shut down 5 early stage tech startups to do it, would they have done it? They would have done it before I finished that sentence. So the fun economy reigns here. The success of the fun economy is judged from the top down. So if the big money keeps making big money, all good. Blackfire Innovation rightfully enables and encourages some innovation in the areas of gaming and hospitality. Totally makes sense. This is the place to do that. If you have 40 million people visiting this area every year, which I've talked about in previous episodes, that is the run rate indicated on the LVCVA website, Las Vegas Visitors and Convention, CVA, Convention and Visitors Authority. So if you go to that website, go to the research tab, you can find rates of visitation. People do come here. If you're going to have a hospitality, gaming, innovation spot, this is the place to do it. So Blackfire Innovation, focused on that. Good stuff. Hey, if you're gonna make a new kind of hotel room, if you want to build sustainable bed sheets, which is one of the things that they've actually done there at the Blackfire to investigate alternative materials to make bed sheets that they're easier to manage for the turnover rate of bed sheets in a hotel in Vegas or a resort. So yeah, that's the place to do it. Wonderful. If we're going to have economic diversity, though, and if we believe that tech startups are a big winner, we will not get there without the 4 pillars that I mentioned, or some variation on them. I'm open to debate those. And building some meeting spaces and some restaurants, bars, and coffee shops is not the panacea that they think it is. Because I don't know if you know this. And this was sort of a minor surprise when I first got here, and it's been only more interesting. There is a huge coffee culture in the greater Vegas area. Coffee shops aplenty. Many of them do some interesting things beyond coffee, so they become more of a restaurant, sandwich shop, breakfast spot, etc. But yeah, coffee culture here is very strong. Frankly, I'm amazed that there isn't more ethnic coffee, Vietnamese, Turkish, Nicaraguan, Ethiopian, etc. There's a strong Ethiopian community here. There is an actual Ethiopian cultural district that is coming together since I think it's been about a year now. So I would expect somewhere to see an Ethiopian coffee shop. So we'll see. But coffee culture here very strong. The restaurants, obviously, no shortage of bars. So the notion that building a facility with more restaurants, bars, and coffee shops and meetup spaces as the gateway to an innovation anything is curious to me, because we already have an innovation district in downtown Las Vegas, which is you can very, very easily get to UNLV from downtown Las Vegas. Car, bus, Lyft, Uber, probably bike if you want to go for a bit of a journey. It's not that far. So proximity hopefully is not the magic. The downtown project had a very poor connection to UNLV, politically, geographically, mentally, emotionally. But the geographic connection was the strongest of them because it is actually not that far. So placing the innovation corridor along the 210, is that it? The 210? When you stop driving cars, it doesn't matter so much, but there's a loop. I think it's a 210, right? So great. Build more restaurants, bars, and coffee shops. Good luck. That does not make the innovation cultivate any faster, the culture, and it does not make the difference between having an entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem and not. Honestly, it really comes down to the culture of innovation and the talent pool and education. Those two, which one would come first? Good question. They might emerge together. Emerge one for if you have a Silicon Valley in 1944 when Professor Terman became the dean of engineering at Stanford, and he is considered the father of Silicon Valley if there is one. Did he arrive and begin cultivating a culture of innovation, or was it already there? Did he make the difference between positive education and development of a talent pool, or was it already forming? Probably both things were already kind of there, but when you sprinkle on some super grow, which he did, you start lining up the pieces just right. You start putting them together, and they start coming together on their own and with a couple of pokes and whatnot. The belief here seems to be that if we build it, they will come, as I've said several times. Field of Dreams, if you're not getting that reference. So what is the list at long last? You've sat through, 52 minutes or so of this episode, which is still a rant. Remember, I'm not complaining. I'm pointing out things that we could do better. taking some inspiration from food tech in 2019 and 2020. And by the way, now food tech is inside CES and they charge money to participate in some of their programs, but it is inside the show, which I think is probably not as good. So for better or worse, it's part of CES inside now. Let's create a showcase of innovation and entrepreneurialism based, people that are based here in Vegas, called The List, for local innovation, show, and tell. List. Aiming for the same spot as in Treasure Island, or perhaps at the Wynn. It's a short trip from the Venetian Expo, so people could walk or however they move, however they are ambulatory. They're not necessarily pedestrian. Not everyone's a pedestrian. Not everything is code. Not everybody's a pedestrian. But you can make your way across the street. Now, why not have this inside CES? That's a good question, which I will get to shortly. But across the street, it's across either street. So I think that's Koval, wherever it turns into Koval, to get to the Wynn, or you would cross the Strip, which does have a bridge. So you can cross over to Treasure Island pretty easily. And we can get a nice sizable room. So the one at Food Tech had was large. It was not, it was big. It didn't have a table in it. It was a substantial room. Probably could have fit 2,000 people or something. I don't know. And so they had tables, they had companies showing off their wares. We could do exactly the same thing here. So taking inspiration from Michael Wolff and Food Tech. So same spot, same scheme. Invite people that are already in. It would obviously be during CES. While CES leans heavily into, by the way, Eureka Park, if you've never been there at CES, that is hosted in the bottom floor of Venetian Expo, formerly Sands Expo. That is where companies from around the world and around the country, startups and research projects, so you'll see a lot of academia, startup companies. There'll be pavilion style, so that a little startup from Korea or from Italy or from Turkey will be in a Turkish pavilion or an Italian pavilion. So they'll have a booth, a little tiny booth, almost like a podium, but they are exposing their project. They're a small startup. They're exposing their product and services or whatever they're working on to a large population of foot traffic walking right by them. So I've discovered that is the best place to go. In my opinion, there's really no need to go to the other halls and whatnot. People there are mostly marketing people. Odds are you're running into the founder of a startup in the Eureka Park. It's the place to be. So yeah, while CES leans heavily into technology, consumer electronics, the List need not do this, or not so much. So it could be, some of it could be the future Silicon Valley, that is Las Vegas. So one or two tables of that. And then the rest would just be any innovation that people are driving here. There may be food innovation, food culture here, coffee culture here, very strong. The Culinary Union very famously runs this place. So cooking, the hospitality industry, tourism. Generally speaking, if you are innovating in the fun economy, you may not be getting the attention that you could be or should be. So any sort of local innovation could be showcased in this show and tell. Here's what we're working on. Here's our target audience. Hey, we get to try these ideas out on 40 million people visiting here who are all participating in the fun economy in one way or another. Unlike Startup NV and the generally mistaken notion that only tech startups are worthy of attention, the goal here is to showcase actual innovation taking place in this oasis in the desert. So why outside CES? Why not try to get inside CES? Well, CES is pricey. And I don't mean the booth and the space and all that. That's probably ridiculous. At about $300 for a floor pass, and there are discounts to be found and free passes for CES alumni. I haven't paid to go to CES for a floor pass for 10 years, and is limited to those 18 years and older. That's the more important part. It's almost as bad as Vegas itself, which tends to think 21 and older is the beginning of an innovation mindset, which is ridiculous also. For CES 2023, the people of Greater Vegas were caught, and I don't mean the people of, I mean the people who in the government, county, cities, I got to note that in my notes, were caught substantially off guard with CES. This year it was in January, which they didn't seem to be aware of. And despite claims so often made about the strength of this area with a startup scene and whatnot. There was nothing to see. They were caught completely off guard. I remember hearing directly from city employees, city staff, hey, CES is this week. Are we doing anything for it? We don't even have badges to go in and check it out. So completely and totally dropped the ball, my opinion. Students of all ages, with their parents perhaps. I honestly don't know what a lower limit on age would be for entering a conference room, a large conference space in something like Treasure Island or a Wynn, but Vegas has become more family friendly in general as far as the visitors go. So I'm going to assume that people could bring younger, now maybe not 10, maybe not 5, maybe 10, maybe 5, hopefully 12. Certainly 18 would be not the bottom, not the lower limit. So hopefully younger people, parents, etc., would be able to come with their parents, and others would be able to come and visit or participate to see what innovation in the greater Vegas area actually looks like. Like I didn't even know people were working on these kinds of things. Obviously, CES visitors would be welcome and encouraged to visit, and they can see what's going on as well. And we're right near the whole startup pavilion, startup scene that is the Rika Park. So they're already in that frame anyway. Like, oh, more startups. Oh, local Vegas startups. But locals would be encouraged to visit and learn without the need to purchase a CES badge. And most important, innovators we have starting at around 12 would ideally not be turned away, as I've harped on now. So if we do the list, if we have the list, are you on the list? Are you part of the list? Maybe, are you part of the list? That would be a cool marketing campaign. Reserving the space and getting local innovators on board to spend probably one day, maybe 2 days, but probably one day right at the beginning of the show, maybe the second day. Come on down, walk on over, wheel on over, get yourself to the Treasure Island or maybe to the Wynn, depending on who would be in on this. Wander on over, however you get here. Bring your kids, bring your parents. Check out what sorts of innovation are happening right here in the greater Vegas area. Huh. That sounded like a helicopter. Yeah, it was a helicopter. Interesting. Production near a sky. So the goal would be to showcase people who are doing innovation and innovative things. Why? Because our mindset in Vegas centered squarely on the fun economy. So if you're not tearing down something or building something or overpaying rich people for something, baseball teams, you really don't get the attention that you could get in a place that valued innovation as much as it claims to. So our local media, even our business reporting in local media, horrible, inept, perhaps is a word I might use. They simply don't do it. They don't do it enough. They don't do it well. So if you move here from Silicon Valley and you got tons of money and you're going to have a Vegas Tech Summit or something in your house, you'll get plenty of news coverage. But if you're trying to do something interesting, innovative, if you have a startup that's trying to change the world in some positive way, you're doing water conservation? Meh, everybody's doing that. Not as exciting. Wait, what? Yeah, it's just not interesting. We'd rather talk to the guy who is already rich. Yeah. That's Vegas. So yeah, the list. If you're listening to this program and you're interested in doing something like this, you can do it, or you can contact me and we can do it. It would be an investment in the future of sorts. Obviously, sponsorship would be critical. Obviously, having something like a Treasure Island or a Wynn able to support this and participating with a space that's available. This is probably too late to do it for CES 2025. I said CES 2023. CES 2024 is when the city staff and whatnot of Vegas were completely caught off guard. What I mean by that is sometimes you will see more of a presence especially in Eureka Park, of City of Las Vegas, of Clark County, of now 2 years ago, I think it was 2022 or 2023. I think it was 2023. The GOED, this is the Governor's Office of Economic Development, proposed having a pavilion for Southern Nevada or Nevada startups. I think they were aiming for Southern Nevada. So they were going to actually have space inside CES focused on startups and innovation. But other than that, you'll at least see some sort of a presence, and the people that work for the city will attend the show. So they didn't even have badges arranged. They just weren't there. I will also say that at Mobile World Congress, Las Vegas, which if you want to get some insights, speak to anyone at the Mobile World Congress in Las Vegas who regularly attends Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. I spoke to some people who live in Barcelona who had a booth in here, and I said, "So what do you think of this show?" And they said that it's very small. But the mayor has gotten up at the MWC here, and they make a big, huge thing of it, like it's the second coming, and it just isn't, because it's mostly companies from other places, international especially, visiting to show off what they're working on. So we can claim to be a startup a startup scene in an innovation corridor. We can claim to be the next Silicon Valley. We got all this excitement in hype form. When it comes right down to it, we do an awful job of examining who's working on what resources are available, what we actually need here, what's missing from our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, and what we can do about that. And if you feature the people that are working on things, the local innovator show and tell, if you feature them far and wide, you don't limit them to CES, you invite people from CES, obviously, but anyone who's in town, anyone who lives here would be welcome to come by. Hey, you want to see what people in Vegas are working on? What kind of innovation is happening here? We're calling ourselves the next Silicon Valley. We're calling ourselves a big innovation hub. I think we could be an innovation destination instead. I've talked about that previously. Let's show and tell. Put your innovators where your hype is. So that's the deal. And again, if you're interested in doing this, you can find me. You can email me at dhugo@cafegenius.org, CAFFEGENIUS.org, cafegenius.org, and say, hey, I want to do the list. Or you can just do it. You don't need my permission. My permission is granted. It's not trademarked. It's not nothing. It's just a notion. And I think it's a good one. You don't even have to call it the list if you don't want to. That's all I got for you today. Be sure and check out innovateforvegas.org. Yeah, that's our nonprofit public charity. Buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo for links to various other media productions like this one, my GitHub repositories, announcements, my favorite coffee beans. You don't have to spend any money. It's really just my vectors on a profile page that point to me. It's better than Linktree, in my opinion, to have a little bit of free form. But I do have a link tree of sorts. I think it's bio.link or link.bio, one of those. But I don't really use it anymore. So anyway, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. Thank you so much for living. Thank you for that too. Thank you for listening. And take care.